Welcome to the special 2018 seasons of the Wealth Standard Podcast, celebrating life, liberty, and property. You are currently listening to Life Season 1.
Okay, I'm here with my good friend and who I consider a pretty amazing mentor with business and investing, Ken McElroy. Kenny, what's up?
How are you, man?
I'm awesome.
Good to be here.
Awesome. We're here in San Diego, La Jolla.
Beautiful La Jolla, but we're in a hotel.
We're in a hotel. You can't tell. We're at a Meet the Masters event, and you were gracious enough to step aside and do this interview. So I've known you for since 2012.
Yeah.
And at that time, kind of still am, but I remember how nervous I was to meet you. And then you graciously let me come down to Scottsdale, and I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
It was like about an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
Discussion, and I still have my notes, and I still refer to them every once in a while. But thank you, because I think part of your personality that's so I would say dynamic and attractive is that you've been so successful, but yet you understand the idea of giving back. And I think there's a number of people that I know that feel the same way. So thanks for what you do.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
But so you've been on the show. It's been years. But what I would say is, as we're in this theme for this season is the idea of the individual, and that an individual, people are the true asset, right? Everything comes from a person's idea to some degree. And I know, you share a very similar philosophy, but really looking at some of the awards that you've won. I think is it 2 years in a row, or this is the first year you won one of the top companies to work for?
Yeah. 2 years in a row now in Arizona. Yeah, 2017 and 2016.
And you have 350 employees.
Yep. Yeah, we do. A lot of them are in Texas, but yeah, we have probably 150 in Arizona.
Yeah. So I would say of anyone who understands the value of an individual, it's you. Right, because in the end, your business, which is primarily real estate, and it's management, it's acquisition, it's construction, but there's a lot of people involved. So maybe speak to, just your experience over time and how you've come to understand maybe the value of an individual, because you have a huge spectrum, right? You have those that are super entrepreneurial, but you have those that are just like the grinders, like the super hard workers. Like maybe talk to me about your experience just with people and how they have helped you in business.
Well, I think that my philosophy on how to run a company and how to manage employees and how to motivate employees has changed a lot from the time I started. I think that we all, at least I read all the textbooks and all the, business books and all the things that, kind of walk you through some of the things that you're supposed to do. But really, I found that not all of those things work. And so what I started to do about 7 or 8 years ago, which was, I think, a bit of a risk at the time, and it was certainly a big change, but we started, how you bring everybody in annually and you go over the numbers and you go over your budgets and you go over the objectives for the year and you go over your goals and all that stuff. We always did that. And we, like I said, that's what some of the business books said you're supposed to do, right? Keep everybody informed. And then I decided to do something different, pretty radically different, actually, is we started doing book studies with everybody. So now we bring everybody in and we study a book together. And that, believe it or not, has changed the whole culture, because it went from, being, I think, self-serving to selfless. What they understand, what they do understand, and what they get for that 2 days that we that do it, is that we're trying to work on them. In other words, I know you're a huge personal development guy, just like I am, and you read a lot and you listen to things a lot, and you keep yourself healthy and you keep your mind healthy, and you attend all kinds of things and read all kinds of books, and I do the same thing. And I thought, if I can, because I came from nowhere, if I can sharpen my mind with knowledge and personal development and awareness, then why can't I teach it to some of the people that can't afford it? And why wouldn't I do that to my own company? So I felt like I was on a jet, flying out of the stratosphere away from my company, because I was developing personally in a lot of ways. And
but it wasn't keeping up.
It wasn't keeping up. No. And so we started studying together. And we just did we just had it. We fly about 150 people in, and we just had our last book. Every year, now everybody's like, oh, I think this is going to be a book for our book study, and everybody, last year we had 3% turnover. And I'm telling you, I don't know everybody, but they see me on stage. They, bring guys like Andy Tanner in, or Bob Molly, and this year Jason Hartman came. And we just study together, and we go deep, and we talk about things, and we talk about relationships. This year was all about relationships. And I was basically saying, if you can change your relationship with your kid, your mother, your father, your wife, your spouse, your girlfriend, or whatever, then you can do it with anybody, and that carries forward into, whether they walk in a sales office, or you're a maintenance guy, or whatever you are, And so this year we dove deep on relationships, and I'm just constantly, and what's interesting to me is that most of these folks, you got to imagine, a lot of our people in our company are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year people. They don't have the time or the money to study like that.
Take courses, read books, take time off.
Yeah. And so that's what we started to do, and it seems to have worked.
So in that, I think it's fascinating, because the idea of, there's an angle of personal development, but then you also have this angle of culture, right? And the cohesiveness of the culture. But maybe talk to, like, when those individuals walk away, like the $30,000 to $50,000 people, as they have that experience that you've flown them in, that you've taught them that, like, what is it that retains them? What is it that keeps them there?
I think it's community, and I think it's a lot of times, whenever, my experience has been that whenever what happens is, corporations develop policies and procedures around a board table, and then they push it down. And, the acceptance rate is low, generally. And so what we do is we try to, in those kind of venues, is we have the room decide. So a lot of our changes in our company can't come from those weekends. And so, we did like our rules of, our code of conduct, that Blair Singer talks about, and we have, we spent one full day of the entire room deciding, what are the top 5 things. Like one of them was never leave a teammate in need, right? But that came from the room, not from me. You know what I mean? And so what happens is that we find that when they leave, there are things, it's like anything though. There's some people that don't apply anything. There's some people that go, that was great. And then there's some people that really embrace it. And so, but all I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to let them realize that if they go somewhere else, the culture's different. Yeah. That's all. Yep. You know what I mean? And I don't know whether or not it'll come back, or they'll come back to us. And we have had that happen, but I don't know. I'm just trying to make the company culture as strong as it can.
And I would say also it's, if they've been other places and they come to that culture, it's like that. It is, I would say it isn't the norm. It's definitely the exception.
It is. Yeah. And we hear that all the time, but again, I like these people. I think that the other piece is that I want to tell them how valuable they are, because the truth is we're all one, right? We're all connected. I mean, I need the guy to pick up the grounds at a property that I bought just as much as I need the CFO to do the numbers.
Everyone has a role.
They're not more important. Neither of them are more important than the other. And I think that people realize that, we try not to have a hierarchy, even though there has to be a little bit of one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way we run the whole business.
Yeah, I think there is an element where you have to have leadership, right? And sometimes those individuals, they don't necessarily want to be told what to do. I think people are naturally driven to follow who they choose as their leader, right? And I think a culture similar to that is a culture in which that is a choice to an extent. And when they choose to follow you, that's when they don't have to be told what to do, right? Right. You may give them direction and so forth, but in the end, it's like, I've heard it a few times where some employees refer to their leaders as someone who they run in front of traffic for, right? And I would say that, I don't know if you find that very, very seldomly, but at the same time, there are cultures inside of a business that are out there that are like that. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think they also subscribe to leadership.
Yeah.
They want vision. That's a big piece, and you have to project what that is. And but it's interesting because what's happened, Patrick, for us is that we've had people that have gotten through and have come into the organization that have been negative or whatever, and they actually get kicked out by the culture now. So we've had that happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the culture actually kicks it out. It's very interesting to me how that's happened. It took several years for that to happen, but the truth is people don't want. They're like, hey, if you're not happy here, then just leave. You know what I mean? And so we have had turnover, but it's been mostly around that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So because I think that's for those who are listening, it's a very important group to be a part of, because I would say in the end, right now we have super low unemployment. There's a lot of jobs out there, and it's interesting just to see kind of the evolution of the different types of industries and businesses that are being created. But let's maybe shift gears to maybe some of the groups that you participate in. And I know that is a big part of personal development for me, which is the groups that you go and associate with. This is a pretty big event here. You do quite a bit with Rich Dad, but you also do a lot with YPO. Maybe talk about how the experiences in those groups have helped you become a better investor, better businessman, better person.
Yeah. So it's funny. One of my 2018 goals is to participate more in my YPO events. And so I've gone to 2 already this month as a result, because what happens is, personal development, I think, is important. And it's something that's ongoing. And so I'm involved in YPO. I'm involved in EO, which is YPO's Young Presidents Organization, and EO's Entrepreneurs Organization, and Rich Dad. We just got done doing a 2-day book study with Robert Kiyosaki on a book that Chris Voss wrote called Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
And great book. And we brought him in on a Skype. He talked to us for an hour. And we literally, I read that book 4 times. I went in there. We had an interview with him. We role play. We do all these kinds of things that people don't see. But and that's how we study. The book before that was more spiritually based. We read the book Awareness. We read the book Untethered Soul. And, those have nothing to do with business.
Yeah.
They have nothing to do with business, but they have everything to do with business. It's all, and so I find myself after just reading those two books, for example, like instead of going into a room like a bull in a china shop, I go in with more presence, and try to see what's going on with the people in it, and try to process them and get them present, so that we're all connected. And so there are some things that you can do and some things that you learn. And, we study all that stuff when we're together as a group too. I think all of that is important. And so, Rich Dad, this stuff, talking on stage and doing the radio shows and all those kinds of things, they keep you sharp, I mean, I have to I'm a writer like you, and I have to stay on top of the current topics. I have to. And if, and
it's just going so quick.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. So, and I think that, it has ripple effect too.
And I think one of the things I've discovered, and that's where I have this, huge appreciation for what you guys do at Rich Dad, because it is, kind of the embodied, what you guys do is total practicing what your mission is, right? Which is to elevate the financial, is it awareness, education of humanity?
Yep.
Yeah. And I would say those ideas and the charge that it kind of gives you as a group. I don't know if Robert would be able to do it by himself, or you would be able to do it by himself or yourself. And that's where I look at like a group of like-minded, aligned people that have a same mission. I mean, it's kind of like one of those unstoppable forces. But oftentimes you can say that the groups that exist for individuals, whether it's their family or their neighborhood or their community, often can be the catalyst to not pursuing dreams. And so that's where I would say, as I look at, determining yourself as your best asset, it's being, aware of where you associate, who you associate with in those groups. Because, I mean, with your YPO group, like what's the scope of business ownership? I mean, because I know you've talked to me before about like guys that have done insane businesses, and most big business owners, in the Arizona area. But how does that help maybe open your mind to what's possible for you by just the type of person that's in that group?
Well, that's a good question. I think in a lot of ways, I mean, Jim Rohn said it. He said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with, and I believe that. If it's interesting to me. And, I remember the steps. I remember being conscious about being around negative people. I remember being conscious around people that were maybe depressed or always, energy suckers or whatever, and I remember saying, okay, this obviously isn't, helping me in any way. And so as I moved through and I found, first landed in EO, or Entrepreneurs Organization, I found that it really does kind of take a positive person to start a business. It's very interesting. I mean, not that there aren't negative people there, but you can be too positive too, of course, but it generally takes an optimist in some ways to think, hey, I can do that. Why can't I do that? And so then YPO was just a whole different level. It was because EO is you only need $1 million of annual sales, and YPO you need 10. Yeah. And you need 200 employees. And so, and then they break you up into small forums. And, in my forum, I've got 2 guys that went public. One is LifeLock. Right, Todd Davis is a good friend of mine. He just sold to Symantec for $2.6 billion. But he's from Plano, Texas, and he started, the personal ID, and, it was a rough road for him early on. And, and I got to, hear behind the scenes about all of it, and same him with me. And so what happens is birds of a feather flock together, I mean, the truth is that some people just play a bigger game, but we all are suffering from the same stuff. Yeah. I mean, we have marital issues, we have financial issues, we have employee issues, we have capital issues, we have mergers and acquisition issues, we have sales, we have everything. I mean, every single person, whether you can throw any name of any company, and everybody's dealing with the same stuff. It really is. And so what's cool is that when you're operating at a big level like that, you've kind of figured out a lot about companies and how they're run and corporate governances and different things. And you have a really nice resource too to draw from, And
it's someone that's gone through similar experiences already.
Yeah.
They can kind of give you guidance to take the shortcut.
I mean, it sounds simple, but I was sitting at lunch this week with my buddy Peter Thomas, who started Century 21. He's in his 80s. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I just started this new franchise. It's called Dogtopia. And I got 70 of them now. And I'm laughing at him.
Dogtopia.
It's
dog daycare.
Dog daycares. I was laughing, because I love him. And, he's one of my mentors, and then also, the CEO of the Diamondbacks, and these are normal people with big, they're just issues are bigger, and you read about them, you see them on TV or whatever. But honestly, they're just the same as you and I. They have the same crap going on, right? But they're into personal development, and they're there for a reason. They're listening to the same speaker I'm listening to try to sharpen their saw. And it's just very interesting to me,
Well, there was the connection I made, and it was years ago, but I played hockey for a couple years in college, and I was never really that good. I just loved to play. And one of my buddies got invited to a junior A camp in Minnesota, and it was put on by the Sharks. So you had some pro guys there, some like IHL, AHL guys, a bunch of junior guys, but he got me in to go. And it was like this week-long camp. And I remember the instant I got there, I mean, these are guys that had like missing teeth, and it was like totally not the crew that I was used to playing with. But I remember getting on the ice, and the warm-up speed was like what full speed was in like a game for me. And so I remember that whole week, like it stretched me big time because of the environment that I was in, and it was amazing. So I made some really good friends, still people that I'm connected with today, and then also I realized just how much better I got within just a short week. So I look at that dynamic, and I think the groups that we I would say choose to associate with, right? Oftentimes they help us to stretch, because we do realize that we all have similar backgrounds, we all have similar characteristics. But yet I think we give each other confidence and support that we can be better.
Yeah. The other thing that I love is that they call you out. I love that the most, because what happens is sometimes you start believing your own BS, And so if they know after a while you have a relationship, and they know whether you're off or telling that, like maybe not being
misrepresenting your obligations.
Right, whatever it might be, right? And so, and that develops into these great relationships, but I love that piece too, because we always weigh in at the beginning, how are you doing? How's your health, family, and business, right? From scale of 1 to 10. And, and so if somebody says, hey, right now I'm at a 6 on my family, then we dive in on that issue, or I'm a 6 on my business, and I've got this going on. And so, I think it's just an incredible resource to have any kind of peer group like that, where everyone's equal. We were talking about this earlier. I think that everyone in the room is equal. Some guys are running bigger companies, but nobody's thought of as superior. There's no hierarchy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that dynamic is helpful, especially because of the caliber of people that are in that room.
Yeah,
especially yours. Well, let's we're probably running out of time here, but let's do this. Why don't you maybe just kind of give a couple pieces of advice for those that are listening as to some of the steps you would take if you may not necessarily be developing your best asset, pursuing a course to improve yourself, but have the desire to.
Well, I think so. I believe, and I think you'll agree, that even if you're sitting in a cube somewhere, if you're developing personally, you're going to make more money. Wouldn't you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah. So I think that it's really that simple, you know, and it's, you know, whether you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or whether you read The Road Less Traveled, or What Color's Your Parachute, or The Alchemist, or all those, of course, you've probably read, I've read. They all change your perspective just a little bit. And I think that the easiest, simplest thing somebody can do is start there. Just pick up a book, read it, and then also, you know, maybe have 2 or 3 people read it at the same time, and then just start. That's what you should be talking about over lunch, you know, and you know, not how upset you are, or you know what I mean, or where, you know, where you might want to go. Although those might be legitimate, but I think, you know, that's the simple. Also, there's no excuse, in my opinion, that, you know, the old days, you used, like how you did and how I did, you used to have to go to seminars and pay for them. And now there's everywhere. They're on the internet, and there's really good positive stuff out there. The other thing that I stopped doing is I just stopped watching TV. And I just don't watch it anymore. I watch some Netflix here and there, you know, on shows. I enjoy shows, but I don't put anything in my head that's negative. You know, I do read the news on my, you know, on my iPod, or my new Apple phone that I got, but you know, and my iPad. But I don't really like to watch Fox News or some of the other stuff, and this the bashing, the arguing and the arguing. Yeah, so that's just what I do. But I think people can do that. You know, they fall into habits and fall into routines. One of the books that we studied was The Power of Habit, like 3 years ago. It's a great book. You know, what makes somebody, you know, when they walk into the kitchen, grab a cigarette and put it in their mouth, and they don't even know they're doing it, or when they're getting in the car or whatever, you know, and that's a obvious example. But there's a zillion little habits that people do, and one of them is go home, pour a glass of wine, sit down in front of the TV till they go to sleep. And that's the worst thing ever, you know. And so I'm not saying you can't have a glass of wine here or there, but you know, every night, you know, or you know, and that just can get out of hand. And the same thing with how you have your relationship with how you speak to people. You know, they're all habits, you know, and it's helped me in every way, man. It's helped me, as you know, how close I am with my kids. I just got back from a week of snowboarding with them. They want to be with me. We want to hang out. You know, when we're together, we're laughing, we're having a good time, we're wrestling, you know, and they're jumping on me, and you know, and they're 19 and 16, you know, and I mean, they're bigger and stronger than I am now.
But, can take you.
Yeah, without a doubt. But the point is, you know, all that stuff is learned. It is learned. I mean, I grew up, my dad was an alcoholic, and I grew up in a, you know, uneducated family, and, you know, I grew up scrappy, and you gotta rough those edges. I mean, you gotta smooth those rough edges, you know?
But the experience, I mean, I don't know, I would say that the experience of life is pretty amazing sometimes, but it's also, it's the framework and the environment where you can really do anything that you put your mind to. And I would say in the end, as we kind of conclude the podcast, the idea is, you know, all relationships, all people in your life are assets, whether it's employees, whether it's people you associate with, whether it's your kids, whether it's your family. And I think if we looked at people that way, and I always try to look at the idea that, you know, the material world is a function of, you know, someone's ideas. Those people are the true assets, not the actual things themselves, right? So in the end, if that is true, then how can you build onto your assets, whether it's what you learn, whether it's developing, you know, the way you speak to people, redoing some of your habits. But I say in the end, it's like anybody can build onto that, what I would say, infinite balance sheet, because there's always something to improve on. There's always something you can do better. There's always more value you can create for other people.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think relationships are the key to life, man.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah, 1,000,000%. All right, Kenny.
Thanks, buddy. Always good seeing you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us as the Wealth Standard Podcast spends all of 2018 celebrating life, liberty, and property. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll see you on the next one.